Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, author of Fantasy Romance and Romantic Fantasy. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Delicious. Today is, say it with me, it's Friday! Woo! November 5th. And you can see that I have de-Halloweened my background, except for like the normal level of spookiness that I normally enjoy. I did take down my Promised Queen poster. If you ever saw any of my interviews before this or so forth, I had the poster with the cover of the Promised Queen there. And I took it down for the Halloween decks, and I decided it's time for it to be down. It's so last May. So now I have that very rare beast that I almost never have, which is a space on my wall. And my mother will laugh at this because we are alike in this way, and that we are always out of wall space to hang more art. So now I have a space. We'll have to see what I can put in my space. Maybe I'll get something new. Buying art is a real weakness of both of ours. I blame her because she taught me to do it, but I guess there are worse vices, but it can be an expensive habit, especially if you live in an art mecca like Santa Fe. I don't think I shared this with you guys, but I think this is really cool. It's painting. I don't know how well that comes through, by Elizabeth Penson. This one is called Phoenix Ascension. And I'm assuming this is the correct direction for it because the wording on the back of the postcard is that way. Although I kind of feel like it should be hung this way. Or, no, I think like this. What do you guys think? Oh, well, we don't have to drill too far down into the weeds. I don't think I could afford one of her paintings, but I really like that one. It's a cool thing you can do around Santa Fe is like, you pick up the little postcards and then you have the image to look at. So, biggest excitement in my world is if you were around the internet yesterday afternoon, we announced the Sephora Grandmaster, and our 38th Grandmaster is Mercedes Lackey. Very exciting. So, in her honor, I put a stack of her books. This is a small subset of her oeuvre. It's she has 140 books, you guys. I had no idea. But these books here are sort of like the core of my personal fandom, and they are for many people. So I thought I would talk about her books a little bit and why they were formative for me. A little background on the Sephora Grandmaster is that it is essentially a lifetime achievement award, but it's also given to someone who not only has made a significant contribution to the science fiction and fantasy genre, but it's about their citizenship in the community as well. And Mercedes Lackey is well known for she goes to schools and talks to kids, and she's uh, been a wonderful mentor to many, many people. And I can attest, I've gotten to talk to her on the phone like 3 times now, and she's just the most delightful person. And when I told her that and I did say it on the podcast, that she was so shocked when I called to tell her that we had named her the newest Grandmaster. It's interesting because she is the ninth Grandmaster, or I'm sorry, the ninth female. She is our 38th Grandmaster and the ninth woman. So that puts us at 26% female Grandmasters. And the SIFWA president gets to choose the Grandmaster. It's one of the perks of the job. So if you are in office for one term, which is 2 years, you get to pick 2 Grandmasters. Mary Robinette, who my predecessor picked two female grandmasters. Kat Rambo was in office for 4 years, 2 terms, and she picked two male, two female. But it was interesting. What you do is you go and you consult the past presidents. They're all on one email loop and discuss the choice. And they, I did still get suggestions for male grandmasters, and like, well, what about this very deserving man? And it's like, well, okay, you guys. So if you do this math, the other female grandmasters, let's see if I can name them, because Mercedes is the ninth. And then we have Nalo Hopkinson, Lois McMaster Bujold, um, and then Jane Yolen, CJ Chariot. So that's five. Anne McCaffrey, Ursula Le Guin, Andre Norton, and Connie Willis. Um, that was not necessarily in order, especially for those older ones. So you can see this if you're familiar with the genre. That's a pretty long span between. I think Andre Norton was the first female grandmaster, and that's a long time between like Andre Norton and Mercedes Lackey. And yes, because it's a Lifetime Achievement Award, we do try to pick people who are a little bit older. That have we don't do it posthumously, so we want to get people while they're alive. But so it's a little balancing act. But anyway, yeah. So there were a lot of years there where they were picking one man after another, and uh, and I'm sure that some of them would argue that there just weren't women around writing, and we all know what we think of that particular argument. The fact that many people don't know that Andre Norton was a woman is, I don't know, speaks for itself. So, by the same token, and by kind of an interesting comparable numbers, right? So I said that Mercedes is our 38th Grandmaster, the ninth woman. And as far as Cephala presidents go, we have had 32 presidents, and I am the eighth woman. It's funny how those numbers match up. So I'm not sure what the take home message here is exactly, except that, we always talk about that representation matters. Um, I think it's important for the one reason that the president gets to choose the grandmaster is they get to choose the person, authors that they grew up reading, that were their influences. So, I mean, maybe this is how it works. That men tend to pick men and women tend to pick women. Kat tends to be a very egalitarian person, so she may have felt like it was incumbent on her to do the balance, to pick two men and two women. I am not an egalitarian sort. It's like when we're at, like maybe can we get a little bit higher than a quarter? Like maybe if we were up around 40% women, I would be willing to pick a guy. But it's going to take a little while to get up to that level. So anyway, when I talked to Mercedes Lackey on the phone, she told me that she was not the kind of writer who wins awards. And you guys have heard me talk about awards before. And it was a little bit shocking to, Kate Baker as our executive director of SFWA, Tara LeMay as the deputy executive director. So over the last week before this announcement, we had been putting together the press release and everything. And so they've done the research on her and put together the thing. And they were both shocked that Mercedes Lackey hasn't even been nominated for any of the major genre awards. The ones she has got are the Pegasus Awards, which have to do with like music and lyrics, because one of Mercedes Lackey's strong themes in her books are the the heralds who sing, and that's part of how they travel around and they write music and they play music. So her awards are for that, but it's like the science fiction and fantasy community. No Nebula nominations, no Hugo nominations, no World Fantasy nominations, because these aren't the kinds of books that are nominated for awards. And Mercedes Lackey is married to Larry Dixon, who is a well known name also. And Larry Dixon tweeted, you know what? I'm going to see if I can read this to you because it was really a lovely tweet. I think Mercedes is less on Twitter. Let's see if I can find this because I saved it, but you know, it's like, okay, I'll have to grab it from somewhere else. Please to stand by. I know it's here because I shared it. Okay, so Larry Dixon said, no, okay, wow, I started to go down a rabbit hole there. Apologies. Okay, so Larry Dixon said, friends, this is everything I wanted for Misty. Misty is her nickname, but she hasn't told me to use it, so I haven't used it yet. Um, Friends, this is everything I wanted for Misty. Misty doesn't really win awards because she and I write series, and no one book stands out. But 50 years of work, that adds up. This recognition is a dream made real. Thank you, Sifwa, and all involved. Makes me verklempt. Uh, so, I mean, I know I circle around this a lot, but it's like, how do we decide which books and authors are worthy of awards? You know, it's this relentless seeking of the of what is art. And I think, you know, there's been a lot of discussion of, you know, like the effect of the MFA in other genres, and I'm not sure if we've talked about it in science fiction and fantasy. And full disclosure, I do not have an MFA. I have uh, a master's in science, in neurophysiology, and I never did get a writing degree. I've taken classes, and I've also never attended the Shishi workshops. So, you know, no Iowa Writing Circle for me, no Seton Hill, no Clarion, not even Taos Toolbox, which is up the road from me. Because by the time I could have, well, because I was already working when I decided that I didn't want to be a scientist and wanted to be a writer. And it would have been really hard for me to take all of that time away from my life, you know, from raising my stepkids. And um, you know, and I know that people who carve out the time to do those things, it's not easy for them either, but it just never seemed practical to me. And even though I was invited to be part of an MFA program, they really urged me to, which was flattering. It would have cost so much money. And I was like, why would I go get this degree when I'm already publishing books? You know, and they were traditionally published books too, you know, so it was like, well, I'm already partway, you know, my career is going. Why would I go learn? Well, the only reason you go get those things at that point is for the cred, right? So there's been so much discussion about this that it becomes a self-sustaining community, right? So people who graduate from these MFA programs, which are phenomenally expensive. I think the one that I would have gone to would have been like a couple of years, and it would have cost me like $50,000. Um, or if you take away a couple of months of your life to go attend Clarion, or you know, weeks to go do Taos Toolbox, and they're expensive. Clarion might be scholarship. I don't really know, but you know, in terms of like you're not at home going to your day job or doing other stuff, yep, you know, pay your travel. It's hard to say, but anyway, they also want to justify their existence, And that doesn't mean that they aren't really helpful to writers, because I think they are. I think that you do learn a lot from them. But that doesn't mean that the people who don't do them don't know how to write. But there is that implicit division. And so the people who graduate from the programs and these, she workshops, they tend to nominate each other for awards. And so it becomes a very incestuous community. And there is a certain amount of disdain for a writer who did not do those things. And it's this weird thing that we see in all aspects of our society, I think, where it's art versus commercial success, and that if you are commercially successful, somehow you're not an artist. So it becomes entirely fashionable to dump on Taylor Swift because she's incredibly successful. Therefore she is not an artist and isn't any good. Um, you can fight me on this. So anyway, it's been interesting to be part of this, to be able to recognize Mercedes Lackey and her incredible influence. So let's talk about her books. If you don't know, um, I'm going to talk about them in a particular order here. Okay, so this is not the order of publication, but her first book we could talk about uh, was The Arrows of the Queen, published in 1987. And a lot of these books, I bought from like a magazine stand type store, mass market paperbacks, not big fancy stuff. So there's this series which begins. It's the book one of vows. These are the vows and honor books, and so there's Oathbound, Oathbreakers, and Oathblood. And these stories are the adventures of Tarma and Kethri. And let me tell you guys, this was, at the time, there were just not books like this. Tarma is a warrior, and Kethri is a sorceress, and they are like a dream fighting team. And Tarma has a really deep trauma. One of the great things about Mercedes Lackey is she has these characters with these deep emotional wounds that don't just magically disappear, that they wrestle. And it's, I think that's one reason why, like, some of the community looks down their nose at her, because, like, people talk about their feelings. But it's part of what makes her books so rich. So it's really cool because there's these three books about Tarma and Catherine's adventures. Let's see, I have to figure out a way to stack here. Actually, I should put them so you could see them. Well, you can't quite, but so then there's this book, By the Sword. You guys know what I'm talking about with By the Sword. Okay, By the Sword, nice thick book. This is about Carowin, and Ursula in particular, totally influenced by Carowin. So Carowin is, and I can't remember exactly how it is. Does it say she is like a niece of? She might be Kethri's niece, but anyway, she's related to these two, and so this was something that I didn't really know. There aren't that many series that did this kind of thing where you had people operating at different points in time, where like these three or these two went, did all their adventures and stuff, and then later there's Carowin, and she ends up training with Tarma and with Kethri, and so there's that. I'm probably doing a terrible job of explaining this. This is why I'm not a book talker. But wait, there's more. So here is these three books, which are probably, which Mercedes Lackey is best known for, would be my guess. So it's The Arrows of the Queen, Arrow's Flight, and Arrow's Fall. And so Arrows of the Queen, as I mentioned, was Mercedes Lackey's first book. And so Talia is a young girl, and she gets this Or I want to call it a familiar, and that's not what they are. How could I have forgotten? It's been a while. I should probably do like a massive read. Companion. So the companion are these telepathic horses. And it's so cool, you guys. This is a theme that runs throughout. And this is like in Valdemar, which is a different kingdom from where these books occurred. So there's this wonderful arc of Talia's adventures. And in The Arrows of the Queen, Talia is doing this really big, important thing, going to a foreign kingdom to negotiate. Guess which foreign kingdom it is? And guess who shows up unexpectedly to like save Talia's ass diplomatically, which is not Carowin's thing, and yet she does it. This was like a gasp moment for me. And also what Carowin does to save Talia links back to something that was established in these books. It's so freaking brilliant, you guys. It's just the best stuff. So then, one of the things that happens in this trilogy, in The Arrows of the Queen, is that they are working on keeping the queen on the throne. And spoiler alert, they succeed because there's happy endings. And so then her daughter is in this trilogy. Winds of Fate, Winds of Chains, and Winds of Fury. And Elspeth goes out on these amazing adventures and learns her own magic. And there's like griffins, and it's fantastic stuff. And you'll sort of like a lot of my most influential sorceress stuff in there. And then I must say, and I used to have more of these books. This is like after I culled my paperback collection, and now I want to buy them all. But then there is also, this takes place like, I don't know, like 1,000 years before the Arrows books. It was a lot. Maybe it's just hundreds, but it's a lot. But this trilogy, the Last Herald Mage, which turns out he wasn't the last Herald Mage. Well, he was, but then then Elspeth becomes, like, after centuries, the next Herald Mage. It's really cool. But anyway, Magic's Pawn, Magic's Promise, Magic's Price. And these are awesome because these are about Vaniel, who is a Herald Mage, so a sorcerer, and he has his telepathic white horse companion. And he is gay. And the first book starts out with him as a young man where he's like not fitting in, and he's not doing the warrior stuff and the training that he's effeminate, right? So this whole trilogy is about this gay sorcerer. And let me tell you guys, there are queer characters throughout all of her books, but that Vaniel, beautiful Vaniel, was the first gay male character I ever read. I feel quite certain of it. And not only was he a gay male character, but he was the hero of a trilogy. So that's my little Mercedes Lackey fangirl fest there. I went a little long today, but yeah, it's great to celebrate all aspects of our genre. You know, it's like, I don't mean to sound like, if I did, that I think that the books who win awards, or the writers who come out of these programs and workshops, are not wonderful writers, because they are wonderful writers. It's just not, they're just not the only wonderful writers. And I would love to see us expand our ideas of what is recognition worthy. On that note, I will remind you all that First Cup of Coffee is part of the Frolic Media Podcast Network. You'll find more podcasts that you love at frolic.media/podcasts. And I will talk to you all on Monday. Have a fabulous weekend, everyone. Go buy some Mercedes Lackey's books. You all take care. Bye-bye.